Good afternoon, or I'm sorry, good evening. I'm used to doing this at 2:30. Good evening. I'm 14 First Alert meteorologist Arden Gregory, and we are on alert tomorrow. Tomorrow is a First Alert weather day. Mainly during the afternoon, we will see heat and humidity that could reach dangerous levels, a heat index well into the triple digits. Then what's going to break the heat is going to be a round of scattered thunderstorms that could bring us the threat of damaging winds and flooding. So that's what we'll be keeping a very close eye on as we go through the day tomorrow. Let me see if I can get this pulled up here so I can see your comments. Some folks asking about the storms that are moving through right now. We are going to talk about those in just a second. I know we've got a lot of lightning and rain moving through in some locations. I do want to briefly mention the heat because I had talked about this earlier. We're kind of waiting for the heat advisory. We're pretty sure one is coming, but they haven't issued one just yet. There is a heat advisory down to our southwest, but here at home we are not included in that just yet. At some point tonight or tomorrow morning, I do anticipate a heat advisory will be issued for us for the day on Thursday, as that's when we're expecting those triple-digit heat index values. Here are the storms folks are asking about right now, though. We had this line of thunderstorms come in from the northwest. It really got a little stronger than I expected it to over parts of Illinois. It has been weakening as it moves into the tri-state now, but it did briefly trigger a severe thunderstorm warning for some gusty winds over Edwards, Wabash, and Gibson counties about an hour ago. That has since expired, and those storms continue to weaken. You'll notice we're seeing less of that bright red line, and it's starting to break up and get a little thinner, more of the yellows and greens, less of the reds now. And the lightning, you'll also notice it had a lot of lightning in it as it was first approaching the tri-state, and with that weakening trend, we're also seeing fewer and fewer lightning strikes within those thunderstorms as well. But we are still getting some heavy rain through southern White County into Posey County, and then some rain and a few bolts of lightning stretching back through Vanderburgh, Warwick County. Again, this is not a severe thunderstorm, but as it continues to push to the southeast, it will keep weakening, but places like Evansville, Newburgh, Henderson could see some rain and a few bolts of lightning as we go through the next hour or so. And if it holds together, it could even reach places like Owensboro, although I think it'll largely taper off by the time it reaches western Kentucky. But within the next hour or two, don't be shocked if we get a little rain right along the Ohio River, and then that'll sort of come to an end as it moves south into Kentucky. Most of the second half of the night after midnight or so will probably be dry. Now, as we get into Thursday, there is an isolated chance of rain and a few clouds possible in the morning, but I think the first half of the day is going to be mostly dry. Those rain chances really start to pick up around or shortly after lunchtime, and then continuing through Thursday afternoon. We've got scattered showers and some thunderstorms possible. Then as we get into Thursday night, that rain starts to become lighter, more isolated, and then kind of tapers off completely. Friday, the models keep going back and forth on the timing on this. We're going to have this kind of stalled out front. So as it kind of wobbles its way over our region, we could continue to see scattered rain on and off throughout the day on Friday. Through the course of the day today, it has showed almost no rain on Friday, to rain only in the afternoon on Friday, to now rain in the morning on Friday. So take all of this with a grain of salt because the models have been very inconsistent with this. But there will be a frontal system kind of stalled out over our region, and along that we could see scattered showers and storms moving west to east along that frontal boundary on and off throughout the day on Friday. This most recent data shows that trending more toward the morning, with most of the rain staying to our south later in the afternoon and evening before tapering off completely Friday night. But again, there's been a lot of inconsistencies here. I think it will be at some point during the day on Friday, though. It looks like we are going to dry out some as we get into Friday night, but even then a stray shower is possible, so no guarantees. As for our severe weather risk, there is a level 1 risk that we could see an isolated strong to severe storm with that line moving through right now. We have already seen that with that brief severe thunderstorm warning in that stretch from Edwards and Wabash into Gibson counties there. But I really think these are continuing to weaken, so you can't rule out another isolated stronger storm, but it's a slim chance. Tomorrow, our entire region outlooked at that level 1 risk for some strong strong to severe storms. Again, those storms bubbling up probably around lunchtime into the early afternoon, and then continuing through the afternoon into the first part of Thursday evening. And while widespread severe weather is not expected, an isolated strong to severe storm is certainly possible. Here's a look at the individual threats. We're sitting at a level 1 risk for both flooding and damaging winds with those storms moving through tonight. Then tomorrow, still at a level 1 risk across the board for wind, but we bump up to a level 2 risk for flooding. So with these storms moving through tomorrow, the most likely threat is that they'll produce some very heavy rainfall, and especially if the storms are not moving very quickly, it could pour over one location for a while, and we could end up with some localized flooding issues. While flooding is the most likely threat, damaging wind gusts may also be possible within some of these storms, but again, it's a low-level threat, so it's possible, but it's not likely, and I don't think it'll be widespread. Let's take a quick check-in on the comments here. Jeff Miller getting quite a bit of lightning in Sava. Folks asking if the storm will hit Newburgh. I think you will get a little rain, maybe some lightning in Newburgh, but it will be weakening by the time it gets to you. It says it's raining in Chandler. Thank you, Jennifer. Karen asks, when are the storms going to move out for a while? Depends on what you mean by for a while. If you're looking for a dry day, you're going to have to wait quite a while. Good evening, Jeanette. Jessica says they've got some power outages in Princeton, I'm guessing from that severe storm that moved through there about an hour ago. Hopefully they get the lights back on for you soon there. Rain, thunder, and lightning in Poseyville. Windy in Evansville. As those storms move in, you will see the wind pick up, but it should die back down after the storms move through. Lots of lightning earlier in Princeton, they say, starting to get some heavy rain. Yeah, and Hannah reporting the same thing I'm just describing. Wind picked up at first, but then you start hearing the rain, and that'll be your first sign as this line of storms comes in tonight. You will probably hear the wind pick up, and then you'll get the rain and the thunder and the lightning, and then everything will kind of move out. Again, not really anticipating any more severe weather tonight. Those storms are weakening, but it will be a little windy, and you may get some heavy rain and lightning there. So it may get a little noisy, but I don't think it'll be damaging there. But that is good to know that they do have some power outages in Princeton from that storm. As for our temperatures, 70s where that line of storms has moved through, 80s where it has not. So that rain is bringing a bit of a cool down with it. For most of us, those temperatures will drop back into the mid 70s by the end of the night tonight. Again, isolated rain chances, but largely tapering off as we go through the next couple of hours there. Temperatures warm and muggy even through the middle of the night tonight. We're only going to dip into the mid 70s. Then tomorrow, once the sun rises, we quickly start to warm things back up, even though it will be partly to mostly cloudy for much of the day. Even a little bit of sunshine is going to send those temperatures soaring, and I think we'll hit the low 90s early tomorrow afternoon. Then as the storms move in, that'll cool us back off through the 80s. But keep in mind, it's very humid out there, and that's why we're concerned about some heavy rain within these storms tomorrow. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. There's a lot of water to work with, and as these storms tap into that and start draining some of that water out, you're going to get some pockets of heavy rain. But all that moisture in the atmosphere, like I said, it's very humid, and so that's going to make it feel even hotter than it already is. So that high in the lower 90s tomorrow is going to feel like we're well into the triple digits. In fact, it's possible the heat index could peak as high as 107, which does put us into that danger zone where there's an elevated risk of things like heat exhaustion and heat stroke as we go through about midday into the afternoon hours tomorrow, really until those storms move through and cool you off some. So I was sharing with Rob and Jamie earlier today, I don't think that there's really going to be any good yeah, the weather's great out there kind of time tomorrow, because it's either going to be hot and humid, or the only reason it's not hot and humid is because it's actively raining and storming. So it's going to be one or the other throughout the entire day tomorrow. Moving forward, I mentioned that cold front swinging through tomorrow is what's bringing us those thunderstorms. Then that kind of stalls out over our region, and so that keeps those rain chances in the forecast on Friday. Then just as that system starts to move out, the next one starts to move in. So that brings us more scattered rain in the forecast as we go through Saturday and Sunday, and then even lingering over into Monday of next week. So sorry, I've got like a hair that has blown into my mouth and I can't find it. I don't know if those of you with long enough hair to have that happen, ever have that happen to you, but it's driving me crazy and I can't find it. Okay, so we have this cold front then continuing to just kind of linger over our region. We're stuck where these fronts are just barely clipping us and just hanging over our region for the next several days, and that keeps us in the rain chances. But what we don't see is we never get to the other side. Normally a cold front would swing through and behind it, it clears out, it gets cooler, it gets drier. We never get that relief. We're just stuck sort of right on the border there. And so that means we've got rain, but we've also got heat in the forecast all the way into early next week. So tomorrow we are at that level 2 risk for some scattered flooding. Friday, Saturday, still in that level 1 to even level 2 risk, and then bumping into that level 2 risk again on Sunday. So for the next several days, we have this risk of possibly getting these pockets of heavy rain that could cause flooding across the region. But in addition to that, we have this risk of heat. So for tomorrow, we're at this moderate to major heat risk. So sitting at like a, what would that be, a level 2 to level 3 out of 4 there as far as that risk of heat-related illnesses like heat exhaustion and heat stroke. We back things off a bit on Friday, back into that moderate risk, but it creeps back in again Saturday, Sunday. Like I said, very humid out there. And with all that humidity, yes, you have the flooding risk, but you also have those hot temperatures feeling even hotter. So we'll continue to deal with those heat index values, probably in the low triple digits, like 100 to 102. Through both Saturday and Sunday. And then as we get into Monday, notice that major heat risk creeping in more and more, and especially by the middle of next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we're talking about major to maybe even extreme heat risk. If the current forecast holds, and a week out, that's a big if. The temperatures are always going to change a little bit, but as it stands right now, it's looking like Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we could see some heat index values close to 110. Again, that's if it currently holds. But we could be tracking a pretty major heat wave as we get into next week, and maybe even beyond that too, because the outlook for Thursday, July 24th up through the 30th, the Climate Prediction Center has already outlooked us as being at a high risk for seeing an extreme heat event there. So once we get through the storms and all that, the rain chances finally start to taper off a little bit. It gets a little drier as we get in the middle of next week. We get returned to that sort of typical summertime, like maybe a shower kind of pops up in the heat of the afternoon, but that would be it. Once we start getting back into that, the heat really becomes a problem as we get into the middle of next week. I think from about Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Friday, maybe even Saturday of next week, we could be talking about a pretty serious heat wave headed toward the tri-state. So that's something we'll keep a very close eye on. Good evening, Paula. Shelly says, I finally got that hair out of my mouth in case anyone's curious. Shelly says that the east side of Evansville flooding a little bit. Good to know. Oh, a transformer apparently got hit in Princeton. Thank you guys for letting us know that. You're our eyes and ears out in the tri-state, right? Judy, I do not anticipate Owensboro getting any hail. She's asking about the risk of hail. We are not currently outlooked for hail or tornadoes. So with any storms we get tonight, and even more so as we get into tomorrow, that's where I think tonight's storms are kind of winding down, but any storms that still remain tonight and then those that are expected to develop tomorrow, really the concern is they could have heavy downpours, maybe some flooding, and some damaging wind gusts. But hail and tornadoes not something we're outlooked for right now. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that you can commiserate with me on this. So that's something we'll be monitoring very closely. And Megan asking if we've had a true 100 this year yet. I don't think we have. We've certainly had a heat index that high, but we had a heat index that high today. But I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've had a true 100 yet this year. And I don't think we will later this next week either, really. That 100 is hard to get to around here. Jeff has talked about this before, kind of the reasoning why. When you have a humid heat like we do, there's a limit to how much you can really heat it up in just the span of a day. Think about, how long it takes a swimming pool to heat up, for example. When you think about that water, right, the water always takes longer to heat up than the air does. We see some of that with the water in the air as well. So when you have dry, low humidity, you have these huge temperature swings. That's why out in the desert, it gets very, very cold at night and then very, very hot during the day. But here, when you have this humid heat, you see like what we're describing here this week, where even at night, it's kind of warm and muggy. And then during the day, it gets hot and humid, but getting all the way to 100 is hard to do with the kind of humidity we have in the tri-state. You really have to almost have a drier heat to get to 100. It's very hard to do with this kind of humidity. So it's certainly going to feel like it's well over 100, but to get the actual temperature to 100 is hard to do with this kind of humidity, and I hope that explanation made sense. Skylar asking about flooding around the U.S. I will tell you that I read just earlier today that we have set a record for flash flood warnings issued in the United States. This has been the most flooding we've seen in a year since they started keeping up with, issuing flood warnings and tracking how many are issued across the entire country in any given year. This is a record-setting year. So this is a lot of flooding across the nation. We've been stuck in this very humid air mass. There's been a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. You've had tropical systems down along the coast. That's what's caused the flooding in North Carolina. And then again, that flooding in Texas was a tropical system that formed just right on the coast there in the Gulf and then very quickly moved inland. So it wasn't out in the Gulf for very long, but that is where it originated. So it was technically a tropical system. Then it moved inland and just spun over Texas and dumped all that rain that caused all that fatal flooding. So there has been a lot of moisture and a lot of heavy rain events already this year. And even when you think back to the spring, we had a lot of rain, flooding, a lot of river flooding. So overall, there has just been a lot of water, a lot of flooding already this year. And this has been a record-setting year for flash flood warnings in the United States. So hopefully we can dry things out a little bit moving forward. But at least for the time being, we're still stuck in that very active weather pattern here at home, where again, we're going to be just skirting right along the borders of these frontal systems, where we're just getting caught right on the edge, where it just brings round after round of rain, but we never cross over to the other side where we get the cooler temperatures and the lower humidity. That's just not in the cards for us this time around. So we'll be just hung up in this very active weather pattern, and then it seems like we may get a bit of a break from the rain as we get into next week, but that's when I think the heat will really crank up. I'm closely monitoring the possibility for a pretty major heat wave as we get into next week. But for right now, we are on alert. Tomorrow, again, a two-part alert day there. We are on alert for the heat, as we will have heat index values as high as 103 to 107. Then what's going to break that heat is we'll have some scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon, but those storms present the possibility of flooding and some isolated damaging wind gusts. So it's either going to be hot or it's going to be storming pretty much all day tomorrow. So just be prepared for that, and make whatever adjustments you need to make to your schedule. Tomorrow is probably not a great day for outdoor plans because, like I said, it's either going to be really hot or it's going to be storming. So best idea is probably to move some of those plans indoors if you can, or just move them to another day. All right, I think and hope I've answered everyone's questions. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I'll have another look at your forecast on 14 News tonight at 10. So I hope you'll join me then. Have a good one, everybody.